This is Enterprise Security Perspectives, straight talk for the people who carry the risk. No hype, no vendor pitch, just what changes when security has to move at the speed of the threat. One quick note, the voices you're hearing, including mine, are AI generated. The ideas are Roger Halpier's.
The voice is synthetic. The perspective isn't. Let's get into it.
Last time you left us with a cliffhanger, you said belief isn't the work. The work is deciding in advance. So let's get practical. A leader believes you. Monday morning, what's the first decision?
The first decision is the one most organizations refuse to make. What actually matters? You have to separate what is genuinely critical from what is merely important. Most companies won't do it. They label everything mission critical because choosing feels dangerous. Nobody wants to be the person who said a system was expendable. But until you make that choice, nothing serious can follow. Your investment stays spread thin. Your recovery plans stay incoherent. And your response authority stays contested because no one ever agreed what to protect first.
And making that choice, is that security's job or the business's?
The businesses. And that's the first reframe. Stop governing cyber resilience as a program that sits next to the business. Govern it as a property of how the business actually operates, like safety, like quality. The moment it's a side program, it competes for attention and loses, and the hard choices get pushed onto people who don't own the consequences. The moment it's a property of the business, those choices land where they belong, with the leaders who will answer for them.
Define critical, though, because everyone thinks their system is critical.
That's why it has to be operational, not symbolic. Not customer trust is critical. That's a slogan. I mean, this specific payment service, this specific database, this specific data set, whose loss would create harm you cannot absorb. Name them. Be concrete enough that an engineer at 2 in the morning knows exactly which 5 things to save first. The crown jewels aren't a category. They're a short, specific list.
And once you've named them?
Then you do the harder thing. You define acceptable loss. You decide, in daylight, what you are willing to lose, what can degrade, what can be delayed, and what must survive no matter what. This is the decision organizations postpone the longest because it feels almost taboo to say, we would let this fail. But here's the truth. Refusing to define acceptable loss doesn't remove the loss. It just guarantees you discover it at the worst possible moment, chosen for you by the attacker. Organizational adulthood begins when you design around hard trade-offs instead of pretending you can protect everything equally.
A lot of companies will say they've done this. They have recovery time objectives, recovery point objectives, all documented.
They have them on paper. The question is whether they're executable and whether they've ever been tested under realistic conditions for the systems that matter most. Most recovery objectives are aspirational. They're a number someone wrote in a document, not a capability anyone has proven under pressure. A recovery target you've never tested isn't a plan. It's a wish with a deadline.
You keep saying, name what's critical, decide what you can let go. But can most companies even see their data clearly enough to make those calls?
Honestly, no. And that's the piece sitting underneath all of it. You cannot decide what to protect or what you're willing to lose if you don't know what data you have, where it lives, and how exposed it is. So data governance stops being hygiene and becomes the thing that makes the crown jewels decision real. Sensitive data has to be discoverable, classifiable, and recoverable, not eventually now. Because if your data is opaque, every choice above it is a guess. You'll spend money protecting things that don't matter and quietly lose the things that do. You can't triage what you can't see.
Okay, so we know what matters, and we can actually see it. Next.
Now you pre-authorize action in detail, not in principle. You decide ahead of time which containment actions can execute automatically under defined conditions with AI leading, which identities can be suspended, which sessions revoked, which assets isolated, which traffic cut, which workflows interrupted, which situations genuinely need a human to approve and which do not. This is where most organizations discover the real barrier isn't technology. It's their own discomfort with deciding in advance to accept disruption.
Give me a way to picture that.
Think of how a pilot handles an engine failure. They don't open the manual and start reading when the engine quits. The emergency procedure was written, drilled, and committed to memory long before. So in the moment, they execute. They don't deliberate. Pre-authored action is the same idea for security. You write the emergency procedure in calm conditions, you agree exactly what happens under exactly what evidence, and then, when the smoke starts, the response runs on a decision you already made. The judgment is still yours. It just happens before the crisis, not inside it.
But isn't there a risk you pre-authorize the wrong thing and cause damage yourself?
There is, which is why it's bounded, specific actions, specific conditions, specific evidence thresholds, and the things you're unsure about still root to a human. The point isn't to remove judgment. It's to move it earlier, where you have time to think clearly. Compare that to the alternative, making the same decision live, under panic, with incomplete evidence, while the attacker dictates the pace. If those decisions aren't made before the incident, they get made during it, badly.
Can you walk through what deciding before actually looks like in one concrete case?
Take ransomware hitting a finance system at 3 in the morning. The pre-decided organization already agreed. If these specific signals appear, that system is isolated immediately. These accounts are suspended, this provider is authorized to act, and the business has already accepted that finance can go offline for up to 4 hours. So the response runs in minutes on a decision made months ago while everyone sleeps. The undecided organization wakes up the executives, argues about whether isolating finance is even allowed, waits for legal, waits for someone to check the provider's contract, and by the time anyone agrees, the data is already gone. Same attack, same tools. The only difference is when the decision got made.
That lands. So flip it around. If you had to give leaders a list of things to stop doing today, what's on it?
Stop confusing policy ownership with risk ownership. Stop tolerating standing privilege as business as usual. Stop accepting fragmented identity, fragmented telemetry, and fragmented authority as just complexity. Stop treating quarterly visibility as if it were real-time awareness. Stop letting unmanaged AI agents and shadow tools count as an acceptable side effect of innovation. And stop measuring your security maturity by how many processes exist instead of how fast and how clearly you can actually execute. Every one of those is a place where the organization is quietly choosing comfort over speed.
And if leadership just doesn't make these calls?
Then indecision becomes the security model. That's the part people miss. Refusing to choose what's critical, refusing to define acceptable loss, refusing to pre-authorize. That isn't staying flexible. It's a choice, and it's the worst one, because it guarantees the choices still get made, just later, by someone else, under the worst possible conditions. An organization that insists every service is critical, every interruption intolerable, and every disruptive response too risky to pre-approve has, in effect, decided to improvise its way through every crisis. That isn't caution. It's abdication with process language wrapped around it.
So when you strip it all back, what are you really asking leaders to build?
Not a better security story, a different leadership operating model, one that accepts that some business decisions are now cyber decisions. They can't be handed off. One that accepts resilience comes from pre-commitment, not post-event explanation. And one that accepts a hard truth. Authority delayed is usually control surrendered. Every time you postpone a decision into the middle of an incident, you're not keeping your options open. You're handing the choice to the attacker who will make it for you on his schedule. The whole model comes down to moving the decisions that matter earlier, to the one moment when you still have time to make them well.
So if there's one line to leave people with,
The real divide is no longer between secure and insecure organizations. It's between the ones that have already decided how they'll act under pressure and the ones that still believe they'll find the clarity later. They won't. Later is where the cost arrives. So decide before, not during.
a strong place to end. Thank you.
That's Enterprise Security Perspectives. If it made you think, there's more material linked in the show notes, and the next episode's already waiting.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.